DCL Lanorak, you've got some cool swag.
Oh, Lanorak. All right, yeah, we are. We should be live.
All right, I found the conference room. Awesome.
We should probably all refresh right now because we just went live, so we should probably all refresh.
So audio and video is currently streaming in, Franky?
As far as I know, yep.
Yep. Once you hit refresh, let's all verify.
All right, I'm just going to tell everyone to refresh.
Yep.
So you mean actually kind of refresh the Decentraland browser or refresh our Zoom?
Refresh the
Decentraland
browser.
The
Yep.
browser.
Yeah, and if you're on Chrome, make sure you turn off the audio. It's on the top right. You'll see a little music symbol.
Yep. You can right click the tab itself and then it'll say mute or unmute the site.
Oh, there you go.
Everyone, by the way, if you guys are listening in Decentraland, we're going to start in a couple of minutes. Just doing a couple of testing here and there. We should be good to go. We should be good to start in a couple of minutes. I'm loading in right now.
Yeah, same here.
Do we need to completely exit out and sign back in?
Yeah, just refresh the screen itself or refresh the browser.
All right, looking good, Franky. Looking good for me.
All right, cool.
You can go ahead and check me off the list.
So I don't think Enzo, Edward, Will, and Iman have met before.
No, it's the first time.
Yeah.
Hey,
Actually, I don't think I've met everyone here, a few people here as well. So I don't know if I should introduce you guys or maybe we can learn that during the event.
Let's do it while give everybody a few minutes.
Actually, I don't think I've met everyone here, a few people.
So is everybody here from the DCLCore team?
Let's do it while
kind of, yeah. So I think someone's.
Is everybody here from the DCLCore team?
Sorry, guys, someone's browser is not on mute. I think it's echoing. But anyway, yeah, I'm from. We all kind of work together, the DCLCore team, and Iman and Will. They run a project called MetaZone, and that's mostly what they represent. But we're always working together, crisscrossing through DCLCore and MetaZone. So yeah, we're all from the same kind of bunch.
Yeah, DCLCore pretty much originated as a passion project, I guess. We started doing roundtables amongst the community. Me and Will have a podcast, and it kind of snowballed from there. Now Franky has his own roundtable discussions almost every day with different community members.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of I don't know, the evolution of our community organizing organically, and the DCLCore is the biggest brand we have right now representing that.
Yeah.
So now I guess we're here to talk to you guys about some DeFi stuff, which is pretty exciting.
Well, yeah, we'll try to answer our best. DeFi is still a growing thing, but yeah.
Yeah, that was one of our big focuses on our podcast before we actually discovered Decentraland. Wouldn't you agree, Will?
Oh, absolutely. That was part of our exit plan once Bitcoin went to $150,000.
Yeah, we talked about it all the time. We're like, what are we gonna do with all these profits once Bitcoin moves? We're we're putting it right into DeFi. That was always what we used to say.
I remember watching those podcasts.
Yeah, man. Those are old school days.
Yeah, and then pretty soon after that, we started talking to Matty, and he was explaining to us, about this decentralized world, and then we got hooked.
Yeah.
And and now we really want to get into this DeFi stuff though, because things are starting to pop off. I mean, you guys probably can explain a little bit more about DMM and Comp, the cryptocurrencies.
Oh, well, I know very well Compound, and because I actually participated in a hackathon, and we worked with a competitor, Aave. So I'm very well, I know how the flow works when you have to loan something and then stake something, or how to borrow something. So that's pretty interesting, and why it's created. There's so many more DeFi stuff too. That's out there and coming.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
we can sorry, Will. Let's get into that once we start the thing. That's really good information. But
I thought we started already.
Did we?
Like, I will. I mean, we're good.
Yeah,
I'm in here, and
are we live now?
Yeah, we should be live. We should be good.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to just let people know to refresh and just to make sure that, if it glitches up, just give it a refresh, etc. So let me just do that for like a minute and then, jump back to you guys. So anyone here right now in Decentraland, if you guys can hear me, give me a sign. Just let me know just let me know in the comments. But I'm just going to assume you guys are, because I think we've tested it before in the last 10-15 minutes and it's been working well. But yeah, welcome to this conference. It's going to be an interesting mix of finance, blockchain, and the metaverse, and how these beautiful things are meshing together. We have some really good we have a few new faces and some familiar faces. I'll let Michael introduce us and start the discussions. But just some ground rules. If you find the screen freezing or the audio the audio freezing or the screen freezing with the video, please give it a refresh. There's some issues and bugs with it in Decentraland. There's not really much we can do on our end. I think Decentraland need to do a little few things on their end to fix those. But for the most part, it is working fine. Just give the browser a refresh and you should be able to work it fine. Switch between Chrome and Brave if you need to. Either one of those should be fine to work if you have issues. Secondly, if you're on Twitter, please tweet us out. Tag us if you need to. Post some videos, get some Twitter buzz happening. Post a link, the URL on the top, so people can jump straight in if they need to. And yeah, this is going to be a really cool discussion. I'm going to pass it to Michael, and Michael will introduce us and start the discussion.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Matty, for the introduction. So yeah, we've got a really interesting group of people. This is my first event in Decentraland, which I'm pretty excited about. My mission for the past 7 years has been to make blockchains and digital assets mainstream, and I think that having a completely new world where it is entirely run on blockchains and digital assets is really pushing the boundaries, which is what I'm excited about. We've got some pretty awesome guests here, specifically Matty, who I'm sure most of you know is one of the most active participants in the Decentraland community. Enzo, who is an ex-NASDAQ executive and now very focused on alternative currency investments. And then Edward Buchi, who is one of the co-founders of Bitcoin Bay, who hosts the largest community events in Canada. So we've got some different perspectives at the table today. Maybe we start with just going through all of your backgrounds, and then we'll chat about how you all see the metaverse now and what you're excited about, and then perhaps where we see it moving in the future. Matty, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for introducing us all. So I think you guys all kind of know my work. I try and run Decentraland events. I got involved a couple of years ago, kind of just got into flip land, kind of coming off the cryptocurrency bandwagon. I kind of thought it was a very cool financial opportunity. Got involved with the project and the concept of building stuff, which is really limitless. You can build whatever you want in projects like Decentraland, and connecting that to the blockchain makes a lot of cool value transfers, and things happen, with currency and NFT and art and all that kind of stuff. So now we're pushing use cases, and it's very exciting to connect with different communities, especially the people that we have right now on this Zoom call, and anyone else that wants to get involved in Decentraland. The more people and the more momentum we can build, I think the cooler things and this space is going to see. I've seen a lot of momentum, very positive. We have everything in the mix in this niche right now. We have financial backing, we have the minds, we have the artists, we have everything we need to create something amazing, and I love to be kind of at hopefully the front end of it, pushing it. So that's my introduction. I do a lot of stuff in Decentraland and hopefully across metaverses when they're all ready to collaborate. But yeah, for the most part, that's what I do at the moment.
Enzo, you want to maybe give
Sure.
perspective on your backgrounds?
Yeah, sure. So I've been around. I'm a kind of historical kind of fintech entrepreneur. I've been working in technology around the banking sector, but mostly around the exchange sector. Spent a bunch of years at NASDAQ from 1998 to 2007. and built something called Nasdaq Corporate Solutions, which was a business that it grew to about 300 million. I took it to about 50. I have a tech background, but I've been involved in the internet since 1994, which dates me. But I was building very early websites, comic book websites. I was building stuff that was very, very early. It was exciting. And a lot of things that I see here, it kind of reminds me of, some of the stuff that we were dealing with back then. I mean, we were trying to do 3D objects on the web and all that stuff. And it was extremely early stage. And you could see the kind of evolution with like Minecraft and all of these different opportunities, Second Life and all this. And then the currency aspect, the tokenization aspect is really interesting as far as not only having a virtual world, but then being able to, really create a model where you can build a business, or you can transact, or you can create some really cool art. I'm actually, I went to School of Visual Arts. I went to Pratt. When I was studying in college, I was also doing that. And I was also a street artist when I was a kid. So I have a lot of, I collect art. I love art. And I think this environment kind of creates that opportunity for anyone to be really kind of creative and do things that would cost you millions to do in the real world, and especially with things like COVID around and all of that, and the way the world's shifting, where your tribes are going to be based on interest versus based on the town you live in, or the color of your skin, or some nonsense like that. Now we're starting to really have a global environment where artists can come together, where a musician can, they can come together virtually also. So I have a fintech background, but I have a real passion around things like this. I think this is a huge opportunity, and I really applaud guys who are blazing the trail into this world.
Thanks, Enzo. And Ed, you want to give your background and your perspective, how you see this materializing from your perspective, hosting the largest community events in Canada? And I think you do events all over the place, but would love for you to share your background and hear your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Mateen and Michael, thanks so much for having me over and present alongside you guys. Happy to share whatever thoughts I can share today. My name is Edward. I'm co-founder and the director at Bitcoin Bay. We originally started as a community group, right? Doing a lot of events in offline events in Toronto. But since then, we've been evolving, and we've turned into, as of recently, a startup with a mission, a very specific mission to grow the blockchain ecosystem. And that means using our knowledge to help startups scale in specific ways. For example, getting funding, building their prototypes, and even helping do their marketing. Our channels for our events are a really good conduit for that. And on the other side, we also help investors too. And sometimes we can collaborate with Mike on this to help find them opportunities in this space. So those are the core activities in our company, and our channels is the events that we're good at putting together. We in fact had a DeFi event yesterday, talking about what the roadblocks were moving forward with the space, and my outlook on this is it's actually pretty bright. There's some like key challenges I'm happy to like share that DeFi needs to solve very quickly. But as of right now, like if we can imagine, since we're using art here, like if you can imagine Photoshop where the crop tool, the move tool, the layer tool exists, but they're in separate different apps. That's what DeFi is right now. They're all good at doing one thing, but in separate different locations, right? So they're all considered primitives. You'll hear that term a lot in developer circles. So that's where we're at. A lot of crazy things. Sorry, what?
That's a cool analogy to explain all the different tool sets for Photoshop being all the different tools for DeFi and art and all that.
Yeah, for sure. We try our best to come up with the metaphors, and yeah, so like that's where we're at. All these primitives will lead up to one fantastic DeFi product that we've never seen before, and I'm excited for what that will look like.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah.
So Matty, we've spoken a lot about where we see Decentraland going. I think that, and Enzo, you have spoken less, and I think that in general, they've spent less time in Decentraland. I think that it would be interesting for you to share the recent stuff that's been going on with like that you've been participating in and hosting with DCLCore, like the Art Week and the soccer game. And I'd love to hear what Enzo and Ed think about that. And also, guys, I think that this format, let's keep it like a fireside chat, so everyone feel free to jump in and to ask each other questions.
Sure.
Yeah, Matt, it would be great for you to give an update on some of the recent.
Yeah, happy to jump in there.
activities.
I think it'd be good, Will and Iman as well, to introduce themselves, just because they're at such a core part of like building the stuff on the metaverse. So I don't know if they have.
Yeah, I guess I'll let you take that one, Will. I don't know if you want to start from the organic origin story of us.
No. Just a quick one.
Okay, yeah, exactly. If I start talking, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go all the way back. Go ahead.
Real quick. So my name is William. For those of you who don't know me, we started the Block Runner podcast roughly about over a year ago, and it was just talking about cryptocurrencies, and we were sort of moon boys, starting that podcast, and we got introduced to Decentraland, and my brother actually listened to our podcast and listened to the Decentraland one, and he was like, "Hey, why don't we just build something?" And he got involved, and the three of us started this application called metazone.io, which is a marketplace of user-generated content that will soon be all NFTs that are deployable within Decentraland. And so this marketplace is really creating a place for creators to come and sell their content to other landowners. And we just partnered up with Ethermon, and now we're going to have digital pets within Decentraland. And that testing is actually happening right now. So we're pretty involved in Decentraland, but we're equally as interested in the DeFi space as anyone else. I think this is one of the more interesting developments within the cryptocurrency space in my eyes. I think DeFi is going to be one of those game-changing aspects of really like the technology that's being developed. And so I'm happy to be here. We got a ton of questions.
Yeah.
Iman, if you have anything else.
I think once we run down kind of like broadening the understanding for anybody listening what DeFi is, like in layman's terms, I have a couple ideas. Me and Will, we've actually attempted to kind of like apply DeFi principles into the games that we've created ourselves to kind of like incentivize player retention, things like that, rewarding, liquidity pools, such and such. So I guess after that we get that understanding framework laid out, I kind of want to ask your guys' opinions and get some feedback whether or not these DeFi principles can be applied into the gaming ecosystem that's kind of like barely starting to be built in Decentraland.
Nice. Yeah. So Metazone guys have really been integral to pushing the limits of what we can build and see in Decentraland. But as per your question, Michael, so yeah, I've been involved in growing the projects close with working with the community like Metazone, DCLCore, and intersecting that with whatever Decentraland is doing. And whenever Decentraland seems to release some sort of new features, we try and get the community together and utilize those features like video and audio that you're seeing right now and everything in between. So in the last few months, I think it's been 4 months since Decentraland's gone public, and we've seen a lot of new features roll out, and we're really seeing naturally a lot of art galleries. I think that was the main thing we started to see at the start. A lot of art galleries, a lot of nice buildings, not much interactivity, which is I think the hook that we as like a virtual platform requires to keep people in the world. And that's where things like gaming will come into play and other more interactive things like making art in game, etc., etc., etc. So with the soccer tournament, we hope to push these limits. We have a 24 companies that have joined up in a 5v5 soccer kind of, big tournament that we're hosting in Decentraland. So the game is going to be played actually in Decentraland, just like a normal soccer tournament where you can jump in and verse each other and kick the ball and try and score a goal, just like you do in a normal game. But using blockchain technology, we can push the limits a little bit further. We can provide, I think we're doing proof of attendance protocol tokens, where you can jump into the scene and you can claim these tokens that prove that you attended this event. These are NFTs, and if you collect maybe all 24, you might get something. They'll have value because you prove to be part of this event, and there's ownership of that event. We have the winner of this event gets a gold-backed, DGX-backed NFT gold trophy, which it visually looks cool because it's in 3D. But also you have the NFT, which is gold-backed because it's built on the DGX platform, and I believe the one DGX refers to 1 gram of gold. So it's got a core base value there, and obviously the value it gets from being an NFT and represent the winner of the cup. The winners get gold-backed medals, also NFTs, and in the future we're going to have ways to have payments and things in game. So hopefully more features around that. We're just pushing the limits. Right now Decentraland is really in its infancy. I think it's such a base. It's got so much to grow, just in terms of stabilization and features, etc., etc. And we're still exploring what exactly blockchain can do within the world. And I love pushing events like the soccer tournament. The conferences have been great. I think I've spoken to Michael because I'm a lover of all things entrepreneurship. So I love Shark Tank and I love Dragon's Den and I love that stuff. If we can have some sort of pitch type conference where companies can come tell us what they're about and then somehow fund them in game or do some sort of value transfers, I think that'll be amazing. So, these things become possible with the integration of blockchain and virtual place. And I agree a lot with both Enzo and Edward speaking in the sense that we're becoming more global community, currencies moving, within worlds within countries a lot more freely. And I think having a platform like this should accelerate that transactional process in a trustless manner. So.
How do you guys deal with with the actual soccer game? Are people actually playing it like if I was playing? I know it won't be as kind of enriched from a graphical standpoint, but are you actually playing the soccer game like as if you were playing, an EA Sports soccer?
Yeah.
Game?
So WASD to move your player, the mouse button to move where you're looking at, click to shoot, keep your finger on the button on the soccer ball if you want to add some power. Simple things like that. We haven't made it too complex, just to kind of get some sort of competition thing going on. But we want to do this on the yearly and have some sort of like maybe a
So in March, we had a DeFi stress test. The financial sector of the banks have stress tested. Markets go crazy, and everything drops to shit basically. People are running for the exits and all that stuff. I thought that I was pretty interested in what your take on is for DeFi as far as dealing with that stress test. We heard some stuff that was problematic hybrid, whether this one will work better. So I still think it's kind of a fake, and I don't really know what really was the challenge or why was it and I understand the explanation of that, but have you thought about that at all? I know that might be a little bit out of the Decentraland focus, but if there's a lot of transactions going on, and let's say Bitcoin tanks or gold tanks, for some reason, what would that reason is? Have you ever thought about that?
You mean like how
DeFi
authoritarian platform for lending, borrowing, and commerce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have any circuit breakers. You have no banker who can say, okay, stop trading, or stop this or stop that. It just goes. And I think for someone like me who speaks to a lot of traditional financial people with my fund and kind of teaching them about the adoption of these new ideas, what I like to understand is what do folks think here when, how are you going to build your decentralized platforms for DeFi so that maybe they survive these types of issues?
Yeah, this is this interesting question. Like, there's many risks to DeFi. Which one are you specifically talking about? Like, are you? Is it in regards to the price going down?
I'll tell you something. I know a lot of things, but I don't know what I'm talking about. So
I think I get you, though, Enzo. I think I get you. I think you're asking how the experimental nature of the DeFi system and the financial kind of volatility of the whole space will affect Decentraland and its kind of momentum moving forward. Is that about?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you?
Like an economic perspective, right? If you're trying to conduct.
Plus it's coding, right? I mean, I've been around software long enough to know that there are bugs in code. I mean, Microsoft is king of all bug-ridden software for the last 35 years. So how do you deal with a bug?
Yeah, I think I can talk in terms of like the financial effect. And at the end of the day, we're all at such an experimental stage, especially being so heavily dependent on probably the most volatile markets in the whole world, crypto. When Bitcoin moves, the Mana token moves, and the Mana token basically represents the confidence really in Decentraland. That's how I kind of see it. So, that all comes into play. And for me, over the last 2-3 years, it's kind of been watching and seeing how this.
Hello?
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 You might be losing Mike.
No, I think we lost Mike.
Oh. I was looking for like a completely other person.
Hey, Michael,
No.
we're losing you.
There you go. He's back.
Did it just freeze for everyone or just me?
No, I think just you, Michael. I think you need to mute your tab as well. Or someone needs to.
There you go. He's back.
This is super cool. I finally got the screen working.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's very cool. It's really exciting.
I kind of want to take a stab, or maybe like
Jump
reverse the question to you, Enzo, or any of you DeFi guys, because I think you guys are a lot further ahead as far as like figuring out how the DAO mechanisms are going to work and how it's like you're basically explaining like a scenario where some kind of human intervention needs to be done to correct it. It's not necessarily the code isn't perfect like you described it. So in our case, I don't think we've gotten to that point yet. It's, as far as if there's any platform bugs or codes, it's still being handled by the team itself because we're in such an early stage. We haven't gotten to the DAO process where we have to figure out how to delegate these issues, like who is going to be responsible for correcting these bugs in an event something breaks. In a true decentralized ecosystem, we can't rely on the team for everything, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, can you guys give us examples of how the DeFi ecosystem handles those kinds of issues?
I could try in 5 minutes to try something.
Yeah.
Go for it, Ed.
Okay. So you, Iman, mentioned trying to take a description of DeFi and something that in layman's terms. So essentially, so I'll go spend a minute on that and then move on to interesting things where that can happen in DeFi. In regards to how to mitigate risks that Avi or Compound could go through, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So DeFi is essentially a movement, right? It's been spurred. Not a lot of people talk about this, but it's been spurred on by the Ethereum Foundation, right? The Ethereum Foundation has a very specific kind of mandate. They need to make Ethereum better than Bitcoin. They need to have more use cases than Bitcoin. Right now, Ethereum is good at sending money from one person to the other. Ethereum can do that too, really well. But for Ethereum to really stand out, they really need to get more use cases. So that's where there's whole organization, this whole mechanism, this apparatus, which is the Ethereum Foundation and consensus. They've been investing in different companies that do specific things, and these specific things are financial tools. Aave is one financial tool. Compound's one financial tool. They both do lending. Gitcoin's another financial tool. They do payroll, but in a decentralized way. MakerDAO is a decentralized DeFi tool too. It's actually very basic. It's actually a stable coin where instead of having money locked up in a vault, like USD Tether, supposedly, the money is locked up in a smart contract, and that makes the DAI. And that was what makes it a stable coin. And it's all done decentrally. So we're having all of these services popping up here and there. And there's always improvements happening. I've realized that I've learned from a few folks in the space here that we're soon coming to a zone where we can do fixed interest rates on Compound and Aave, which hasn't been done before. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is say, hey, you want to lend your coin? Please lend your coin and lock it up for a locked period of time. In Compound or Aave, you can't lock it for 3 months. People can opt out anytime. But if you ask them to essentially stay for a certain period of time, you can do fixed rates, and now you can do really cool services around that. So there's always innovations happening in the DeFi space. And I would agree, so far, that there are a lot of bugs that need to be solved. For example, the MakerDAO hack was essentially because the smart contracts were leaking money. And essentially, when the Ethereum blockchain was so clogged with transactions, the smart contract that managed the stable coins, was the transaction that made it work was delayed, so it gave out coins too late. I'd love to introduce a developer to talk more deeply about this. It's just because of how Ethereum was so slow. It was slow to signal MakerDAO's contract to do something, that there is a leakage of value. So when it comes to improving the protocols like Compound, for example, it seems that all of these apps are not decentralized completely in the way that we hope they are. They're semi-decentralized. The coders have the right to make updates on it, but it's not fully decentralized yet. I see the decentralized happening when all of these DeFi things work together in a kind of ecosystem. Yeah. For example, if there is a bug happening in Aave, that bug can be listed and issued on something like Gitcoin, and someone who can work on that Gitcoin project can take it on. Chainlink can watch what's happening on Gitcoin and make sure that the task is already done, and therefore you can have decentralized bug fixing of apps. That's what it could look like in the future. But right now we're in a zone where all of these parts are semi-decentralized, and the risk is on them. You have to trust them to want to decentralize in the future. You have to trust their code, and some of them make a good point of exposing their work on GitHub, so you can see what they're doing there and hope that they're on the right track. But that's where we are right now, and yeah, there's way more risks than that. But yeah, I hope that try to address it.
So Enzo, why isn't there a talks about setting up a circuit breaker for a lot of these cryptocurrencies, especially in the DeFi space? Like for example, Ethereum, you lock up Ethereum and then you essentially get DAI for the most part, to make it simple. So why would there be, why couldn't you code a circuit breaker for cases like when, another pandemic happens and everything crashes?
Yeah, well, that's what, so my experience, I was at NASDAQ during a lot of these changes in the rules where this was after the bubble. I went there full time. I was more of a consultant, but when I went there full time, it was after the bubble. So that's when they started putting in circuit breakers in the exchanges. And basically what they do is they stop trading because they just get everybody settled down. And also HFT, these high frequency trading systems would, which we have here too, start to do things that are a little bit that kind of create a spiral effect. So yeah, you could have them. I think that's something that could happen. I think you guys are on. I think everybody in this space is very interesting, and I think I'm a fan of it. I'm a huge fan of it. So my whole thought process is when I get involved in any of these, investing in these projects or utilizing the products, I will, try, whatever I can do to help, I will try to help. But this is a really interesting, right now, no one can get a loan from a bank anyway, because the banks are saying they have all this money from the government, but they can't do anything with it because they don't know what your credit score really looks like. They don't know if you're going to be employed in 2 months. It is another, to me, it's another nail in the coffin for, or it's another opportunity for our whole model to work. Cryptocurrencies, blockchain, decentralized finance. This is another reason why we need to take it away, or have our own independent, shadow banking is what they call it, but it's just an alternative banking. Because what they have is, the people who are in charge, to me, are a bunch of idiots, basically, at the end of the day. But they're trying their best, but at some level, they're supposed to be the smartest people in the world in this case. And I feel like they still don't get it. Like that, right now is the time to lend to small businesses. It just doesn't make any sense. So I think that and I think it's a great opportunity. One of the things I thought was cool was with Celsius, they started doing loans at 1%. I mean, that was like, that's a big deal. And they're not totally decentralized, but wow, and
so what gives them the opportunity, I guess, or the capability of offering such, attractive lending platform terms? I guess what you call them.
We don't know enough about, some of it I believe is a trade secret. I do know that they're pretty public with a lot of their information, and their CFO actually is a chartered financial analyst. She actually was the COO for the CFA Institute in New York, so she's a former Morgan Stanley person. So these are traditional financial economics folks, but they're taking this decentralized financial model that a lot of people on this panel have been involved with. And it's going to become, I think it's going to really grow into something very, very big. I think it's going to be a massive challenger to the banking system the way it exists now. And I just had some questions because we were talking about DeFi. It's kind of boring, actually, to be honest with you.
But
I think NFTs and art and the games and soccer. I mean, that sounds like so much more fun.
I think a super exciting thing with NFTs that Matty, you brought up that I hadn't considered is, in the real world, there's only a limited amount of seats for a soccer game, so you have to pay to go to a soccer game. But in Decentraland, you can incentivize participation with events by rewarding people to go to events. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
With an undetermined value, with a value that is X, the market decides.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing. Like, we're seeing different companies play around with different use cases for NFTs, and then we're somehow integrating that with things on Decentraland, and people are integrating things, with their projects, and we're just seeing like this mashup of all these new creative ways to use everything, and it's very broad. And I think the analogy that I think was it Edward you brought up about things being scattered everywhere. I think we're in a similar kind of space, but we're slowly starting to see some intersects where it makes sense. For example, the event, the participation protocol and backing, gold backed. When I first thought about DGX, I was like, who's going to be using, gold backed NFTs? But, it makes sense for rewards for tournaments, gold-backed trophies, gold-backed medals. It just makes sense. So things like that, where we're kind of seeing some really good synergies. We're at that kind of cusp at the moment. In the last 2 to 3 months, that's what's been happening. In the middle of the night, I wake up and I'm like, oh, wait a second, why don't we do this with that? Mm-hmm. And it just makes, I don't know if you guys are feeling the same thing, Will, Iman, and Franky, in the Decentraland space, but there's just ideas everywhere.
You know how it goes. I don't sleep.
Yeah, with gold-backed NFTs, I think it just gives the NFT a base value. Instead of
base value, yeah.
Yeah, instead of generating an NFT out of thin air, I mean, that has an arbitrary value that's up to the market to decide. That's why Iman and I talk a lot about NFTs that you earn, because that also has a base value. It could be tiny, but it has a base value because it wasn't generated out of thin air. There had to be some work to be done to earn that NFT. And that work could be as simple as clicking a button, in Decentraland, or leveling up your Ethermon, right? That's another version.
Even the proof of participation model, just the sheer act of going into the world, experiencing it, watching the game, adds value to an extent, but also it has a cost. It has a time cost to get that NFT.
Exactly. And a commitment. If you're missing one of the 10 pieces, all of a sudden the piece that you're missing has immense value to you because you only need one more to complete the whole set, right? So therefore you're willing to pay a lot more. Yeah, we're getting new value propositions, new models of how to generate value. And like Will said, I think there's something it's starting to be recognized, but we've been talking about this for months, how Decentraland is a perfect proof of work layer for NFT generation. In the sense that it's an actual 3D metaverse, you have to invest your time in order to interact with anything in it, and therefore whatever time you spend in this metaverse is valuable. And as long as
is this like a new form of a kind of gig economy model in some way? Because a gig economy model,
it's all dependent on the developers on whatever kind of basically commodities you create within the metaverse. So you're gonna have to create either a gameplay ecosystem around these commodities that you can earn in the metaverse, or whatever. I mean, I'm just speaking off of what we're doing. There's tons of other developers out there that could be creating something mind-blowingly unique, but from our perspective, that's always been our goal. Is kind of like give people the opportunity to enter Decentraland with nothing, zero mana, zero nothing. And there should be opportunities present to where you can earn, the more time you invest in the space.
I wonder whether you think that adoption is going to primarily happen then with little kids that grow up with playing Decentraland as an equivalent of like RuneScape or Minecraft, and earning an income in Decentraland as a 5-year-old or 12-year-old before they can generate income in the real world. And then because they grow up with Decentraland, plus are generating income from Decentraland that they can, automate as they get older. Do you think it'll be primarily kids or primarily older creators? Not asking in particular.
In the beginning, it's probably going to be, people like us, people familiar with the technology. Yeah, the whole, once we get past all the barriers of entry, downloading the crypto wallets and interacting with exchanges and et cetera, and it becomes as easy to use on a face value, on an interface level, as what you just explained on Minecraft or any kind of traditional game. As long as they're not aware of what's going on in the back end, to where like that sword that they earned from killing this super rare spawning mob in this game, as long as they don't. As long as they know, like, this sword all of a sudden sells for like $100 on the OpenSea marketplace, you know what I mean? That's right. That's all they want to care about. They don't want to know all the blockchain stuff that's going on to facilitate that.
I'd love to hear about. I'd love to hear about like the art that you've been like mentioning. Have you seen any ideas on blockchain and DeFi and art that happens in Decentraland?
Well, there's one in particular that I found interesting, is that they used artificial intelligence to automatically generate a 3D sort of art piece that's deployable within Decentraland. And so this 3D art piece is just, it's sort of randomly generated by, I guess, seed data that he grabs out from the world, and it just outputs this interesting looking 3D piece for Decentraland. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that are supporting NFT arts, you know, in their own kind of language, or kind of like a different architecture, in the sense is that art is basically a PNG, a JPEG, or a GIF. But with Decentraland, you can kind of take advantage of this 3D space, and now I think we're going to start seeing a lot more 3D art than the average, you know, JPEG and so forth like that. So I think we're only at the very beginning of that part, but from what we saw in the last, you know, 10 days or so on the art event, that's a huge community. It's huge, and they're coming up with really interesting things like programmable art that's based on, you know, the weather, or it's based on some random event that changes the actual look of the art. So that's a lot of the interesting stuff that we've seen. But I think with this 3D space that we have with Decentraland, we can probably expand it, you know, another dimension at the very minimum, and then see where that goes.
I think that the coolest thing about NFT art is that, as you said, it really makes art into a next generation asset. So right now, art is static, and it will always be static. And perhaps the story behind art will change, which can make people more desirable to certain people for whatever reason. But now with the NFTs, you can create GIF art, you can create, as you said, programmable art, changeable art. Yeah, it's really anything is possible.
I was just thinking about this before, but just having that ownership connection via a token or an NFT to your art piece just brings up so much opportunity. And I think that's why we're seeing so much art in this space, is because previously, you know, if someone makes a beautiful piece, they share it on Instagram, they get a bit of likes, and that's probably the end of it. They still have a few canvases. But this NFT represents the ownership, and whoever owns the NFT owns part of the rights to display this art. So I think that connection has just resonated so well with the art community, and we were talking about this before. It's just become overwhelming now in the NFT space. We're seeing art everywhere, really. We're seeing them pioneer the whole space. And to a degree, Decentraland and all these other blockchain visual projects, they're going to be pioneered by the artists, whether it be the people that build the buildings, the art pieces, make the cool songs, etc. Like, they're the ones that are going to make this world a mystery.
I think music too. We haven't spoken about music at all. There can be festivals going on 24/7. There can be events going on 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's one thing that I've been definitely working on is that's the world that I come from, basically, is music. And I've been linking with a couple people that have been looking to, you know, kind of look into that world and see what we can do with NFTs and music, and kind of bringing back that the rarity of certain music, because, you know, when music was accessible to everybody, it seemed like nobody had it anymore, because it was more like yeah, my voice is streaming in money. When music was accessible to everybody, then it was like, oh, you know, you could or couldn't listen to it, and it seemed like actually less music was less people were looking for it. And when I was growing up and music was hard to find, people were actively looking to find better music, you know. So we're looking to look to NFTs to try to bring that rarity back, you know.
It was a really cool
platform for NFT MP3s.
Is
Yeah,
we're
trying to figure something like that out. Yeah.
I think
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
I think, also, you go to the venue and you get the NFT MP3 of the song that allows you to play the MP3.
You'd be able to play it there and not
estate.
anywhere else. Yeah, and then you would own.
Super cool.
That's the license right there. That's the license. If you own the NFT, then you should be able to play it anywhere.
What?
Right?
It's the license for the song.
But you can bring back like exclusive music. Like back when I was younger, exclusive music, music that you couldn't find anywhere else, was like the holy grail of music. And we'd like to bring that back. So we're looking into it for sure.
Quick question: like, has there been art that's been sold on Decentraland? Like, have you seen like a lot of NFTs that represent art being bought and traded?
We had an event the other day with Pixel Chain, and these a couple of guys that are pretty well known crypto artists. They made art right on scene, which was just like it's kind of like pixelized art piece, but it was like I said, these guys were some pretty good names, and then they went on to sell them right after the show. I didn't check if they sold. I gotta imagine they did, though. We had quite a few people there from the space, so
currently. Yeah, you're right, Franky. I remember that, Pixel Chain and their integration of creating art in Decentraland itself while everyone's watching, it opens this whole realm of art battles, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I think, I made a tweet when it first came out. I was saying, you can currently, as it stands, you can make the art in Decentraland, you can display it in Decentraland on your gallery, and someone can come and buy that piece in Decentraland by clicking on it and clicking the purchase button. So it's very cool. All these events can be completely made in Decentraland today. And moving forward, you can actually start to trade NFTs among people. So if I want something that Will has, he can probably pop up a window and I can see what he has and we can agree to something to trade. And then it should be able to do that. I remember RuneScape, and that was how it was. I don't know if you guys have played RuneScape. But, we just pop up some windows and make a trade. So those kind of functionalities, I think, will really open up. We have OpenSea where we can do NFT trading and selling, and we have different places where we can make the art. But I think something like Decentraland, where it meshes together and you can do that all sitting in one place next to people that I think that kind of ties into what you were saying, Edward.
Gotcha. Like, there was a crazy idea that Bruce Fenton, a guy from the States on the northeast side, was talking about how tokenization could happen to assets, and that could create a new kind of currency. Have you guys heard about those kind of ideas?
Well, I
think a really cool idea for tokenizing assets. I think you guys might have seen. I just announced that I am now. We launched the XDB Foundation and Cayman, which I'm now the managing director for, and we have a pipeline of brands that will be putting their loyalty tokens on the blockchain using DeFi and collateralize, let's say, $1 billion for some of these brands in a treasury that allows them to have branded stable coins that can provide additional value to their ecosystems.
Interesting. As far as tokenizing assets, I mean, we're doing that to a certain degree. So in our marketplace on MetaZone, people, developers generate their content. It could be from a house to a pet game like Ethermon is doing. And each creation becomes its own NFT. And so this creation could talk to a back end as far as for a video game, or it could be talking to IPFS or any other system out there. And each individual creation could be purchased and traded on OpenSea. And so as far as the assets in the digital space, that's a huge thing, and especially because it creates that scarcity that I think landowners kind of expect when deploying stuff on their land. And it's an important piece for them, because otherwise, if you could just copy stuff, the value isn't there. And so backing that up with NFTs is just it's a sort of a foundational expectation from anyone in Decentraland. So I think that's a space that's going to be growing, and anybody can generate this stuff as long as you learn Blender or some coding. Then there is a barrier, but it's important to kind of allow that scarcity to take place within Decentraland with your own creation. So
I think it opens the door up. Will, and I was thinking about this before, this is what really excited me about what you're doing. So if you guys haven't seen MetaZone, basically people can make digital buildings and stuff in Blender. They can make games, and MetaZone is an application that allows the creators of these games to sell these to landowners, so we can buy them and deploy them on our land. So I think that opens up the doors to, if I want a venue on my land, even if I want to just rent a venue, I don't want to buy it. Maybe for that land at the moment, I want to rent that venue that this person has made. And someone else has bought the NFT for that. I can rent it using some NFT rental contract, which I'm sure isn't too far away. Probably rent it for a weekend, host a party, maybe host a game, etc., rent another NFT that represents some digital building or some digital game, which is what, I think that level of NFT use case is amazing.
I
Whatever.
think I see MetaZone kind of like eBay for the metaverse. I wonder,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not really eBay, kind of like Amazon, like just the marketplace for everything for the virtual world. You'll be able to go in if you want lights for your backyard and your house. You can go to MetaZone and you can get some backyard lights.
It's definitely the beginning stages of exactly that. You know, I have a build on my land where I do a lot of my interviews. I go outside one day, but around the corner, and this guy has a full MetaZone build, with one of my metas inside it, and I was like, all right, we're getting somewhere now,
I think
definitely getting somewhere.
I've seen some really cool use cases. For example, maybe in some time you can buy a radio, like a boombox or something that's connected to different audio channels, and different landowners that own this radio you can have this 24/7 kind of radio channel across metaverses, and whoever owns that radio can switch into it, and anyone can walk into that, and if they have that meta, then it'll be playing. Things like that. And I've seen cars that you've been selling, and hoverboards and all, like really crazy. And to think I feel like the rental space is going to be big. I don't know why I'm going wild about that, but I feel I
think that's something that you're bringing up, but I don't think I've heard yet,
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool to just have value for the person that has bought the asset as well. He doesn't have to just sell it. He can rent it out if he's not using it.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I want to share a crazy idea. It involves something that's very old, which are ERC20 tokens, and involves NFTs.
Go for it.
So, you guys might have already seen this before, but the thing is, let's say you have a house, right? It's $1 million, right? And you have an NFT that represents the house. That represents 100% ownership of that house. Now, on top of that, have an ICO that issues 100,000 tokens. And that ICO represents only 10% of the value of the house. So now, when you issue these tokens, these ICO tokens, they actually have a floor value of 100,000. These tokens that are in the ICOs, because they're based off of this house, they are actually stable coins.
Are you talking about NFTs? Sorry, the NFT represents the house. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and then you make
$20s would represent 10% of the value of the house.
The house.
Yeah.
Isn't this what like security token offerings are basically?
Yeah.
STOs.
And essentially, and you could. I feel like Decentraland, because a lot of play and innovations happening, you guys are primed to try this crazy idea out.
I think that's a super exciting idea. So the real world is one thing, but you could also have your land estates. Let's say,
districts.
One of the Crypto Valley Convention Center district, or the Crypto Valley estate even is an NFT, right? And it has a value and has revenue that it will likely generate. You could have an ERC that represents 10% of the revenue that's generated in Crypto Valley.
There's actually a couple examples of this. Matty, you remember the whale token?
Whale token, yeah. So I was just about to say there is a couple of examples of this. Metalith, which is a company that basically fractionalize NFTs. So you can put your NFT if it's a land, Decentraland NFT or a land, you can put it up there and put a base value to it, and people can buy shards of that represented as an ERC20. So Edward, that's actually happening for an NFT that represents, whether it be an Axie, whether it be a CryptoPunk, or any NFT that has high value, you can get other people to invest in it using ERC.
Flamingo is also doing it.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's helping people with entry points. They're somebody that might not know if they want to go all in or anything like that. They can get shards and no pieces.
I think that's a big barrier to entry with the NFT space. Is one, to invest in it, you have to learn about the project in depth. Your project analysis, you need to know monetarily, financially, if you're investing in this particular NFT at a good price. And to do that, you need to do so much research just with Decentraland alone.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the difference with cryptocurrency. You can join an exchange and buy 20 coins in 10 minutes if you want to. So I think we need to create those options, and it opens the doors for more people to invest. If they're just invested in $10 worth of ERC20s and that represents someone's NFT portfolio, like the whale token, then I think that's a big deal because you're suddenly invested in what's happening with the NFT space.
I think similarly, we're going to start to have people raising loans backed by their NFT estates and or raising capital to buy NFTs that have are joint ventures, or estates are going to need to merge with neighboring parcels to create larger. Matty, you're probably seeing some of that with large land sales.
Yeah, isn't there a platform for NFT loan DeFi?
Yeah.
It's like Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket.
Rocket NFT. Yep.
Yeah.
Rocket NFT.
Yep.
How much has been sold in real estate? But is there like a main? Is there like a macro number?
Decentraland?
In Decentraland.
Decentraland, I think we've done 20 to. I heard $43 million on the secondary market and ICO, but I think I had to double check that. I saw 20 million.
Yeah, I think OpenSea.
Let's just say
if you look at
$20
OpenSea,
million.
I believe the market cap is 100 million. But let me check.
But I think
but I'm saying like when you first started selling property inside Decentraland, how much money did that actually, like, what was the value of that?
So the ICO or the land ICO, I think it was like 15 million USD. And then on the secondary market, I think it's been another like 10 to 20 million.
And so people bought it and then sold it to someone else who wanted to. So I think, that's like, that's a very, I mean, you have an economy. That's a very telltale sign.
That's why Decentraland to me is so exciting, because the basic economy is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with just speed and just so when you update, so at the DCLCore team, are you guys always kind of constantly updating the core engine so that it can run faster, it can do things like play, you can build a game in it, and so on. I mean, I saw some of the smaller games.
Yeah, the dev team with Decentraland right now, they're working on stabilizing and performance so that the games can get better and faster and people load in better and making it smooth so we're on mobile, all that kind of stuff. I think that's going to be the focus this year with pushing big events and ironing out those kinks.
Yeah.
As soon as that's come to a level where people jump in and they don't have many issues, then we should be able to open the doors up to more use cases and adding more feature-rich, increasing the graphics as well. I think we're limiting the graphics just so it loads really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see the reason why we can't move towards more Ready Player One.
The idea of having a client.
5-6 years.
Yeah,
there's ideas of having a standalone.
If you go to a client, there's a lot more you can do with like loading times and.
Yeah, you can load the graphics locally, right?
Exactly.
You can cache them all out.
Yeah. So I've taken it upon myself to basically try to break Decentraland with every event that we do. Me and Matty, for sure.
The cool thing is that if you try to break it, everyone participating is just trying to push the limit. So try to break it.
Exactly.
I think it's great.
So I want to share one of the ideas that we had originally when it made sense. Now I'm not so sure. Get your feedback from this DeFi group. So we have a couple of games in Decentraland, and the game is really about leaderboards. So if you rank the highest in the leaderboard, then you get to win the daily pot. So
Ready Player One.
Yeah. Very close.
That's our motto, I believe, as a community.
Replicate Ready Player One.
Yeah. And so the idea is you would pay the 10 mana, and 10% goes to the daily pot, 10% goes to the monthly pot. And what we originally wanted to do is put that pot, both pots, in a DeFi pool where it would accrue interest, and through that interest we can help, kind of support other players playing other games and so forth. But that was at the time where a DAI was getting like 15% return on a yearly basis. So do you think there's an opportunity for the gaming space, the metaverse, to leverage these smart contracts to kind of help, improve the liquidity, and not necessarily the liquidity, but the ability to obtain, some sort of revenue from this interest from these smart contracts? Is that even like a thing that you guys see happening in the future?
I think you would be able to fund the entire lottery from the interest from the smart contracts, but I'd love to hear everyone else's perspective.
I also think that the newsworthiness, that there's people don't know this is going on. One, most people, right? Because you're the early adopters, so we want to try to get that chart going this way, right? We want to get over the chasm. I think that if you ever had a lot of like a process where there's $1 million on the line, you would have, or $500,000. I mean, you would have some pretty significant interest, because people will work hard. They'll learn. I mean, people who are coders and so on will also get into it, but people will work very hard to win something, especially if there's multiple prizes and there's multiple levels, and it's all if it's all built into a decentralized contract, so there's you can't rig the system basically. I think that is really powerful, and like I just got the Michael Gord, and between Michael Gord and my son who's 20, I got the Quest headset, the Oculus Quest. It's pretty wild, man. I there's some pretty interesting things that once you get into it, why not? I mean, why would you not play a game where you could earn money, or go build something in a virtual space? No matter how big your apartment is, you can go into a virtual space and build something and then potentially sell it. It doesn't.
Yeah, especially if that effort has value, right? We see people brainlessly making amazing Minecraft sculptures, and they don't get paid for it. In this area, you can do that and get paid for maybe people watching and paying you, paying for you kind of showing that stream, maybe buying that piece after and deploying it and posting things and advertising your building, your brand, etc. We are honestly 1% of what it's going to be.
Is someone building a?
Sorry. No. Go ahead, Enzo.
I just have a question. Is someone building a better interface besides MetaMask, or I mean, I don't mind it, but
no, you're right.
There is Portis. Portis is building an interesting wallet where any small transactions like signing or moving money or crypto that's under $1, you can auto sign.
Oh wow.
Okay.
So like the way I described Windows Vista, it's like Windows Vista, right? When you install a game or you install an app on Windows Vista, you're always saying, "Hey, do you allow this app? Press yes. Would you like to do this? Press yes." It's that same crappy experience on MetaMask, but on Portis, that's simplified for you if the value you're sending in a transaction is under $1.
Will there ever be a prompt if those transactions are under $1, or it's just never? It's like a ghost backend thing.
It's ghost backend thing. That's perfect. You have to say, I trust this smart contract, like a decentralized smart contract. I only do it, I sign once.
Just once.
And then that's it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. We need solutions like that, because right now, obviously, MetaMask is a huge barrier. You don't want to get people that are new to the space understanding what gas is and how to buy this and buy that, get Bitcoin and Ethereum. But
it has to be as easy as any video game that anybody would ever play. It has to be as simple as
exactly.
The onboarding process. It's all about onboarding. I mean, Steve Jobs, like the king of onboarding, right? So when I first got my Apple iPhone, I could figure out how to use it without anyone talking to me.
Exactly. It's gotta be not only everyone, kids, babies can 2 years old, they can start to figure out where to go on YouTube with an iPad. But with Reddit was a really good case study for me. I was kind of seeing how they implemented their cryptocurrency and got people to interact with cryptocurrency really that had never done it before. And all you had to do is just sign up with an email and password, which everyone does, and I think everyone is used to doing that. So it's not a new thing. Maybe an OTP if they need one. And then once a bit of disclaimers on how the thing works, and you can suddenly send payments to people. I don't think there is any transaction signing of sending currency and stuff to people. So if we can get to a level like that, even with just crypto and then hopefully the NFT space, that's what's going to open the door for it to expand. Because I think we're not ready at all.
I would fund that project.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I think for me, it's been the biggest focus. I'm looking for those projects to see where they are and if there's people building them, because that's the key right now.
Yeah, exactly. Find out who's already starting it, or who's already doing it, and then just give them a little bit more fuel so that they can get it done and get it out there.
Yeah. I think it's in everyone's best interest to have something like that well funded and operational and running.
Right.
I think the whole NFT space is seeing a bottleneck where we hold a new pre-sale, a new cool NFT project comes up, and it's the same faces going there and buying the NFTs. It's not new people coming into the space, and that shows me that it's so niche right now. It's so micro that the barriers are what's keeping people away.
What's crazy is that the value that the people that are in there seeing it, they're back every time. But it's like you had to jump through those hoops in order to get there, and now you're here, and you're like, I see the value here, but it's the same. I don't know how many hundreds of people.
Yeah, that's a cool perspective. Yeah. It's the people that are at this party come back every time and are super excited about it. Exactly. But to get to the party, you have to have gone through 100 hoops that are not common or normal.
We should definitely try to find a way to fund. I mean, if you're funding people to be on the platform.
Oh, you just got muted.
Oh, sorry. Or doing something. Why not fund them to create software?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. There's definitely people working in the space, though. I can think of a couple on the top of my head. Maybe we can discuss those later. Yeah. But people are definitely.
Yeah, we should.
I had a question for you guys as well on Tether. So right now, Tether's really hamstringing Ethereum's network with all these high gas fees. How do you guys cope with something that you can't really control in terms of like gas fees and all that stuff?
Gas fees.
So how does who cope? Like Ethereum or
like just the DeFi ecosystem? Yeah. How do you guys? Because right now, a lot of our transactions happening through MetaZone, they get held up because of pending transactions, and it's because they're not putting in enough gas or a fee.
And the gas is spiking. Like it'll be like I have a counter here. It's at 25 right now. And gas, I can turn around and look, and it'll be up at 47 in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So when a ton of digital assets were coming to market, we were doing a bunch of airdrops, and we had to distribute ERCs to tens of thousands of that had airdrops. So that was probably the only time where we had a problem with slowing down the network and expensive transaction fees. But I think that it's just time is really the only solution there.
Yeah, that seems to be the sentiment for sure.
Aren't some folks kind of actually using like peg tokens or trying to create like a peg, so that you're not actually using the ERC C20, but using on like a private DLT or something. Like I've seen some.
There's second layer solutions, but what happens is you have to like for, let's say for my wallet full of wearables, I'd have to put them onto that second layer, which would cost gas.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem is that in Decentraland, you're in a decentralized environment that's not fast enough, and you're sharing the network. So if there was a way to create a Decentraland, almost like I would say a private blockchain, but like a shard of it, so that you're only on that, and then it settles on the normal Ethereum blockchain within the next hours, but there's some type of like company in the middle that's kind of doing the treasury at some level, and it would definitely work a lot better and the gas fees can be controlled better, I think, because you're doing a lot of internal transactions that are not on the blockchain per se.
Right.
So you're not on the public blockchain and then you move large orders on the public blockchain. So let's say this is what exchanges do, right? If I have 100 people buying, XYZ token and selling Bitcoin, we'll do it internally, and then I'll take it. Could be a bunch of different small kind of transactions, and then I'll take it and I'll do the big blocks and I'll cross it that way and write that to the chain. So now the gas fees should be lower.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
that's like a sort of like a second layer Decentraland in a sense.
Yeah, you for Decentraland to really get mass adoption, you may have to do some things that look a little bit more centralized.
Yeah.
But those will be services. It's just another service.
In a sense.
Yeah, well, the thing about Decentraland, like it being decentralized, but every part of it does not necessarily have to be decentralized for it to be still Decentraland, I think some people might argue on that, but at the same time, like if you want things to work, like you're talking about, some things may not have to be completely decentralized, you know.
I think at the start, we all understand that it has to be predominantly centralized to push out these things and to have that nimbleness to move forward, or else completely decentralizing things and leaving everything to vote in just makes everything too slow at the start.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
we as a community
Guys,
have accepted, you know. Yep, Michael, sorry.
Everyone, just to jump in, we've gone a few minutes past, so I just want to be considerate of everyone's time.
Sure.
If anyone wants to stick around and continue to chat, then definitely feel free. But Franky, Enzo, Matty, Will, Ed, and Iman, it was great to chat with you all. And DCLCore team, Alpha Sigma Capital team, and Bitcoin Bay team, thank you all for participating. I look forward to continuing to host more events with you all in the metaverse, as well as you all in the audience, and really collaborating with anyone that is trying to grow this ecosystem, and really see where we can take it. So
Great, Michael. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, man.
Thanks, guys, for turning up in Decentraland, and Michael for organizing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Franky, I have to give a shout out to Franky, by the way. Franky's always on time, sharp, and his tech's always on point, and he's available 24/7 pretty much.
Yeah,
Conferences wouldn't be possible without Franky, so big shout out to him for making this all happen. Really,
much
Yes,
appreciated.
You always need a good showrunner.
Much
Yep.
appreciated. Definitely.
yeah, thank you, Franky.
Of course,
All right,
man, of
guys.
course.
All right.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right,
Bye-bye.
cheers, everyone.
Appreciate you.
Right.
I also got to head out, but you all are welcome to stick around, and I look forward to keeping